Terrifyingly, we have come across many cases like this in the life of GBNF, and it doesn't become any less concerning or frightening each and every time that we cover a case like the one here today that focuses not only on the death of a child, but in a murder that was aided by a child. This week we will look at a case of a young woman who knew how to manipulate, use, and abuse another human being for her own purposes at the very young age of 15. And the victim in this case lost a bright, flourishing, and wonderful life at the age of 14. Hello everyone, my name is Lance, and joining me this week is Bailey. Welcome to episode 168 of GBNF, The Murder of Stefanie Rengel. Stefanie Rengel was born to her parents in 1993, Patricia and Adolfo Rengel. Her parents would have one more son together, Ian, before they would get a divorce when Stefanie was 6 years old. Stefanie remained close with both of her extended families. Her mom would remarry James Hung, and they would have two more boys, Eric and Patrick. And her father would remarry a woman named Maureen, and they would have a daughter. Stefanie was close with all four of her parents, as close as a teenager could be, and she was close with all of her siblings, but mostly with her brother Ian, who was her eldest sibling, 2 years her junior, and of course, closest to her age. Stefanie was described by her mom as a pistol. She had, since she was a toddler, avoided complaining or crying when she got hurt, but argued until she was blue in the face about anything that she was passionate about, leading her family to say that she should one day become a lawyer. Once Stefanie was old enough, she became the neighborhood babysitter, and she would often give her mother advice about her siblings because she felt that she had learned how to run a timeout and when not to coddle children as a babysitter. Stefanie had found that sweet spot of being a challenging teenager but an emerging adult who was showing that she would be a wonderful human being. Stefanie was also very creative. She loved to write short stories and poetry, and she had been accepted to Rosedale Heights School of the Arts as a drama student, which she was very proud of. Religious faith was also a very strong component in Stefanie's life. She had just started to attend a Bible study group at Forward Baptist Church, where she had been attending and working with the children inside of the nursery there for some time. Stefanie was also known for helping out seniors and having a deep love for them in all situations. She had an eclectic taste in music, particularly loving bands like Casting Crowns and Panic at the Disco, and Stefanie dreamed of becoming a psychologist or a teacher, and she also could not wait to become a mother later in life. Friends and family remember her as the nicest person in the world to everyone. It was said that even when people were mean to her, she did not care. She did not let it change her opinions of others. She still treated them with love and respect. She was never upset with anyone. When Stefanie was 12 years old, she became friends with a high school boy who was 3 years her senior, David Bagshaw, who was 15 at the time. She was taken that an older boy was so interested in her, and the two would date for a couple of weeks until Bagshaw called and left a very vulgar message on the family's answering machine, saying that he wanted to progress their relationship, and even talking about oral sex on that very public voicemail. Stefanie's parents would then step in, and they told her that she was going to stop spending time with Bagshaw, and this was, of course, a point of contention, because Stefanie was upset that her parents did not trust her to avoid those advances.
Her parents, both being Toronto police officers, her mother specifically working in the cyberbullying division, probably knew what they were talking about, hearing that kind of voice message being left for their 12-year-old child. Being in the generation of technology and online presence, Stefanie was allowed to have social media accounts and emails, but her mother had to have access to the accounts at all times, which is completely fair given the amount of insanity she probably saw happening online every day in her job. Even though she was upset that her parents didn't fully trust her, she did do the smart thing and break things off with Bagshaw. During the fall of 2007, Stefanie was attending Rosedale Heights as a 9th grader. Her now ex, Bagshaw, known as a notorious serial cheater, began dating 14-year-old Melissa Todorvic. Stefanie and Todorvic never actually met before, but Todorvic became unhealthily obsessed with Stefanie, and when Bagshaw admitted that Stefanie was pretty one time, the spiral of insecurities began. Constantly seeing Stefanie as competition or assuming Bagshaw was cheating on her with Stefanie. Stefanie was receiving advances from Bagshaw along with a couple of her friends, and approached Todorvic's cousin to warn Todorvic of these advances. This was not seen as a friendly heads-up by Todorvic, and instead was convinced that Stefanie was spreading rumors and attempting to get Bagshaw back, even though it had been years since their childhood relationship. October of 2007, Bagshaw shows up at Stefanie's home, driven by Todorvic's plan to stab and kill Stefanie. When she finally comes out of the house, he approached her with the knife in hand, but ultimately backed down, throwing his mobile phone on the ground, telling Stefanie that Todorvic is going to call. He says to tell her that he tried to stab her but got scared and ran away. He then left. Stefanie tells her mom, and Patricia steps in, speaking to Bagshaw and his family, who, even though weren't very fond of the relationship between Todorvic and Bagshaw, it was said that they took the stance that Stefanie actually stole the phone from Bagshaw. Patricia also spoke to Todorvic and her family. Todorvic was snarky and simply said something along the lines of how Stefanie needed to stop spreading rumors about her. The entire interaction left Patricia shocked.
Fast forward to New Year's Eve 2007 and New Year's Day 2008, both of which started with so much promise for two young women who lived approximately 6 kilometers apart. Stefanie had spent New Year's Eve with her family at their home on Northdale Boulevard near O'Connor and St. Clair Avenue East, and woke up at home, later spending the early part of the day with a friend. Todorvic started her New Year's Day off by waking up at home and talking to Bagshaw on the phone. She told Bagshaw that she had a terrible nightmare in which she found out that he had been fooling around with Stefanie, and she had said that she wanted Stefanie to be dead because she was done with all of the lies and all of the drama that she claimed Stefanie was bringing into their lives. Bagshaw would ask Todorvic if she could just move on and forget about the dream that she had, and she said she couldn't. And she said that those images were never going to leave her mind, and that would stay that way unless Stefanie was dead. Todorvic then stayed home with her parents and her 10-year-old brother. She cleaned her room in preparation for a sleepover for her 16th birthday party, which was coming up. In the afternoon, Bagshaw tried multiple times to text and call Todorvic, but she was only passively responding to him because she was dividing her time between him and another boy that she was sending flirty text messages back and forth with. Bagshaw eventually texted and called her out and said that he knew that she was flirting with the other boy, and then he and Todorvic had a 6-minute phone conversation, and then there were multiple missed calls again made by Bagshaw. Bagshaw then told Todorvic that if she didn't answer his calls, he was going to cancel the birthday party that they were planning. This relationship, Bailey, seems like it was built on some really strong foundation. I mean, you've got Todorvic here, who's mad that Bagshaw might cheat on her, but she's okay with flirting with other guys. And you've got Bagshaw calling multiple times, probably because he got hung up on. And then when he's not getting her to answer, he tells her he's going to cancel their birthday party. Like, there's a lot of abuse here already, I'd say, wouldn't you?
And a very high level of manipulation for both their ages.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. As we go on with this, remember their ages. They're 17 and 15 here. Like, this is... yikes. So, back to Stefanie. Stefanie returned home around 5:30 p.m., where the family nanny was watching her 12-year-old brother Ian, and Todorvic's parents, on their side, went out with her younger brother to a movie, leaving her home alone. Between 6 and 6:04 p.m., Todorvic and Bagshaw would speak 3 times, and Bagshaw told her that he had a knife with an 8-inch blade and that he was getting close to Stefanie's home. At 6:07, Bagshaw called Stefanie and told her that it was Steve, a friend of hers. At 6:09 p.m., Stefanie put on her shoes and a jacket, even though she did not believe that it was Steve calling her, and she told her brother Ian that she would be right back. Around that same time, Todorvic called Bagshaw, and he told her that he had seen Stefanie, and he hung up the phone.
In very light clothing for the current weather, namely the black sweater her mother just gave her for Christmas, she left the house to meet this so-called Steve. And as Lance said, the caller, of course, was not Steve Lopez. It was Bagshaw. Bagshaw proceeded to stab Stefanie 6 times and flee. One stab punctured her left breast, entering her chest cavity and hitting the inside of her back. Another stab perforated her right lung and sliced open her liver. She was slashed in her left upper arm, and another penetrated her ribs and stomach, causing her stomach to pour out of her body. As Stefanie staggered across the street towards her house, her blood spilling everywhere, she collapsed on the sidewalk in a snowbank. At 6:12 p.m., Gavin Shoebottom, a local resident and accountant, was driving by and saw Stefanie collapse on the side of the road. He ran to her, telling her to hold her stomach while calling 911. The 911 dispatcher instructed Shoebottom to apply pressure on the wound, which he did, using a bed sheet that he had in his car, thankfully. Stefanie could be heard the entire duration of the call in the background, crying, saying how much pain she was in, and crying out for her mom. While on the phone, Stefanie was able to unclearly identify her attacker. She was able to gasp out David Beggs, and pointed down the street in the direction that he ran away. An ambulance arrived shortly after, and Stefanie was taken to Toronto East General, where she was pronounced dead upon arrival. During Stefanie's final moments, so roughly 15 minutes after Bagshaw hung up from Todorvic, Bagshaw would call Todorvic and say he killed Stefanie. Todorvic refused to take his word for it and instead called Stefanie's phone to see if he was lying, but was happily satisfied when Stefanie didn't answer. After the stabbing, Bagshaw fled to his friend's house, throwing away the knife in a snowbank and burying a blood-stained jacket in the backyard. Bagshaw then went to Todorvic's house to collect his reward for the deed. When he arrived, she had him reenact the murder with her playing the part of Stefanie before having sex. Let's keep in mind that this was one of the coldest days Toronto had seen in a really long time, with some of the largest snow piles we've seen in years. And Stefanie bled out, freezing in the snow on the sidewalk, desperately calling out for her mother, while Shoebottom was there as she took her last breath, and these two were role-playing. Okay.
Isn't that, like, beyond haunting? Like, I don't even have a word for it. I mean, and again, Bagshaw, 17. Todorvic, 15. Stefanie, 14. Like, these are children, for all intents and purposes. And this 15-year-old girl is, like you said, she's getting off on this. She wants to reenact it so that she can know everything that happened, every sordid detail of the murder of this 14-year-old girl. Like, Bailey, like, what the hell is wrong with the world?
This is one of those cases that unfortunately literally hits too close to home because this happened down the street from where I grew up around this time. And being a female teenager, I understand being insecure. What I cannot comprehend or wrap my head around is the complete lack of care for what just happened. The fact that you are using it as a sexual drive. The fact that this 14-year-old was so knowledgeable about her sexuality and how she could wield it to get what she wanted at that age is insanity to me.
Yeah, it really is. That's what I was going to say. Like, this girl literally told Bagshaw, like, I'm not going to have sex with you until you kill Stefanie. Like, it's crazy. 14 years old. Like, that is to be able to use your sexuality. And I'm with you. I understand insecurity, but something, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet or we will, but she didn't even know Stefanie. She had been told through the grapevine that Stefanie thought that Bagshaw was cheating on her. She'd never had a conversation with this girl. She just knew that 2 years ago she was Bagshaw's girlfriend, and Bagshaw thought she was pretty still. And from there we go to I want her dead. That's a bit of a leap.
It really is. And we didn't fully touch on it, but like all of Todorvic's previous relationships were said to only last weeks because she was such a clingy and manipulative person that she was going through phones and demanding to see people's emails. And she had like zero trust in any relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No trust at all. And unfortunately, Stefanie here paid the price for that because she had the gall to have dated someone 2 years before, and she had the nerve to go for that girl power of trying to let Todorvic know that her boyfriend was cheating on her.
She had the nerve to not wear glasses. She had the nerve to be pretty, whereas Todorvic felt that she was not pretty enough.
So, let's get back into this. Here comes the hard part for any parent, as anyone can imagine. Stefanie's mom, Patricia, was called by Ian, which is Stefanie's younger brother, and he told her that there had been a stabbing in their neighborhood, and then she found out that Stefanie wasn't at home. She inquired with other police officers and found out that the victim hadn't been a teenager, which they believed would ease Patricia's mind, but it was in fact, they told her, a girl in her 20s. But Patricia was not eased. She was immediately more terrified because she knew that Stefanie could be confused for an older girl, and she was unable to reach her still. Once she found out, tragically, that the victim was indeed her daughter, she would head immediately to 54 Division with her husband and demand that the officers give her an official interview for the investigation because she believed that she knew who may have been behind the homicide. Even though she had just lost her daughter, Patricia was stoic. She was all business, and she wanted to ensure that the investigation moved quickly. Patricia would provide a statement, and she would give the investigators 2 names. As I'm sure you can guess, those 2 names were David Bagshaw and Melissa Todorvic. When Patricia said Bagshaw's name, immediately the investigators had a light bulb go off, and they had a correlation because, as Bailey mentioned, on that 911 call, when they listened, it sounded like Stefanie had said a different name. She had said David Beggs. The problem was, because her speech was not clear, they had went with that name. So when they heard the name David Bagshaw, they knew that was a natural fit. Patricia explained the previous incident when Bagshaw had said that Todorvic wanted him to kill Stefanie, and she explained that Todorvic had been very jealous of Stefanie, and she also told them about her interaction. At 2 a.m., Detective Sergeant Steve Ryan went to Todorvic's home and brought her in for questioning, but not as a person of interest. She was brought in for questioning regarding Bagshaw. Todorvic's mom accompanied her to the interview, and during that first interview, Todorvic sat with her arms crossed in a confrontational state, and it was very clear that she had no interest in being there, nor did she have interest in talking about Stefanie or about Bagshaw or, frankly, anything. Todorvic was asked eventually if it would be fair to say that she had set up the homicide, and Todorvic coldly told investigators that it would, and she wanted Stefanie to be dead. Her mom at that moment was completely shocked and tried to get Todorvic to stop talking. But Todorvic turned to her mom and told her in no uncertain terms that the investigator had asked her if she wanted Stefanie dead, and she said again that she did, and she was happy that she was dead. At that point, that first interview was ended abruptly, as you can imagine, because investigators now knew that she was a suspect, and they knew that anything that she said in that interview would be inadmissible. She was then handcuffed and led to the holding cells while investigators figured out how to proceed. She was brought back again for a second interview hours later, this time with investigators looking for a confession as a murder suspect. In the meantime, Bagshaw was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. In the second interview, Todorvic was confronted with the fact that a few hours before, her mannerisms and her answers had led investigators to stop the interview as a witness, and that she was arrested. They said that they now believed that she had taken part in the homicide in some way based on her disturbing answers. Todorvic agreed that all of those statements were correct. They also told her that Bagshaw had been arrested for homicide as well. Investigators had to be very careful in that second interview because the rules for interviewing a minor are much, much different than interviewing an adult. And they needed to ensure that they followed everything to the letter of the law so that the defense team could not find a way to throw their case out when this eventually went to trial.
With her mother present again for the second interview, they told her that she had been arrested for first-degree murder and may be charged with first-degree murder. There was no response. The officer attempted to clarify what she's being charged with, and when asked if she understands, she matter-of-factly said yes. Todorvic's mom sat on the couch, 2 feet away from her daughter in silence. It could be seen that she is shocked by everything that is being said and the way her daughter is reacting. Investigators started chatting casually, asking her how her marks were, even including her mother in the conversation. He lets her know that if she wanted to make a statement, she could, and she could stop at any time and request a lawyer or to talk to her parents or anything. So she could stop whenever she wanted, covering their bases and making sure that she knew her rights, but also in a way that seemed comforting to her to almost continue. Enough so that Todorvic started talking and singing like a canary. She said that Stefanie had been spreading lies about her and that she had been tormented by her. By this time, her mother was rubbing her back, trying to comfort her as her daughter cried. Investigators asked when the rumors had started, and she said that the rumors started a month or so before the homicide. They asked when Bagshaw was informed of these rumors and what she asked him to do about it. She said that she had told Bagshaw about the rumors, and she expressed that she didn't like her and that she didn't want her around anymore. The investigators pushed a little more and asked when the couple spoke the night before, and Bagshaw mentioned he was going to go over to Stefanie's house. Was he specific about why he was going there? She said that she believed he was going to kill Stefanie when he went over there, and she thought that he had a knife with him. She said that Bagshaw had thrown it away. Due to the weather and heavy snowfall around the time of the murder weapon was not found for weeks after being thrown away. The temperature rapidly warmed up and the snow melted. The investigator gathered a search team and found the knife within a few minutes. It had landed blade first in the snow. The knife was found sticking out of the ground. Investigators then presented to Todorvic that they believed that she disliked Stefanie much more than Bagshaw did, and they wondered if this had all been more than her idea than his. She completely agreed. When she was asked if he would have gone ahead and done anything without her speaking up, she said no, and she said that he never talked about doing anything before she shared how she felt. She even said that she felt responsible. Obviously, Todorvic's mother was in shock as her daughter openly admitted to all the details of the murder and the plan. Another investigator kept pressing about the knife. She shared that he had told her that he had an 8-inch blade and he was heading to Stefanie's house. The investigator then asked Todorvic what her response to Bagshaw was, and she said, "Do whatever you want." When she was asked what she meant by that, she told the investigator she meant, "If you want to kill her, kill her." In a desperate attempt to save her daughter, Todorvic's mother spoke up and actually asked Todorvic if those were the words she said, probably looking for some clarification for herself as well. She asked Todorvic if those were those exact words. Todorvic again said that no, she told him to do whatever he wanted to do, and that the investigator asked her what she meant by that. That's not what she said. Todorvic said that she was relieved that she wouldn't have to deal with Stefanie anymore. People saying that Bagshaw was cheating on her with Stefanie and the rumors. The investigator smartly pushed harder with Todorvic, pushing the fact that he believed that Todorvic knew exactly why Bagshaw was going over to Stefanie's house. It was to kill her, because the investigator pointed out that he didn't believe for 1 second Todorvic would have allowed for Bagshaw to go over there alone without her if she thought there was any way they were just going to talk. Todorvic said that she didn't think that they were just going to be talk, and there wasn't going to be any talking. She said she didn't even think Stefanie would come out of her house, or that he was just going to walk there and then walk home. The investigator presented her with the fact that at 10 a.m., she told Bagshaw that she wanted Stefanie dead and asked what he said to that. Todorvic said that Bagshaw asked her to just forget about it, let it go. And Todorvic said that she told him no, she couldn't. Todorvic was obsessed with the idea of killing Stefanie just to be rid of her.
Bailey, I have to ask, did you watch or listen to any of the video and audio that's online of this interview between Todorvic and the investigators?
Of course I did. It is one of the first things I did. And I was beyond shocked at how meek and timid she came across with her voice, though, because she wanted to sound almost so innocent while describing such a heinous plan.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I had to, crank the volume on my computer so I could try to make out what this girl was saying. It's crazy. Here is this girl using sex to manipulate her boyfriend, literally sitting in front of her mom and saying, "Yeah, I wanted her dead. She's dead, I'm happy." But, saying it all in this cute little innocent voice so that nobody will think that she's possibly capable of these things. It's so weird. It was so haunting to listen to and to realize again, this girl's 15 years old and, to be honest, way more cold and way more callous than even serial killers that I've watched interviews with.
To me, this was just another play of a manipulation tactic. Play sad. Give the little girl sad voice, "Oh no, I got caught and this is what I did, and if I just am nice about it, maybe they'll be nice to me."
But how do you reconcile that with the fact that she just literally was "Yep, she's dead. I'm good with it." It's she did not lean into that personality. It was she thought that was the best way to talk, but her personality, her absolutely batshit mental manipulative personality just would not, she couldn't hide it.
I'm genuinely curious because I haven't looked at any other videos after or before where she's speaking. I'm genuinely curious to know if that's how she spoke. Did she talk with her friends in that kind of a tone? Is she just a soft-spoken, low-toned individual who has that innocent, squeaky voice? Or is she literally screaming and yelling at Bagshaw every 5 minutes because whatever he does is wrong? Is she literally screaming like a banshee about everything and have a boisterous personality. And this is just a show of manipulation. I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm with you on that one, because, like, that'd be interesting to know. I guess we probably won't ever know. I don't think that I could find any other videos, but you're not wrong. It's a good question, I think. It's an interesting psychological study, that's for sure, right here. Luckily for everyone in the outside world, at least at this point in time, the investigators did not get swayed by her little sweet and innocent mouse voice. And of course, this went to trial. During the 3-week trial, Todorvic sat in the courtroom, straight up, and staring straight ahead with a blank look on her face the entire time. She didn't seem to display any remorse or, frankly, any emotion at all, or any care for anything that was going on around her. It was shared in court that a psychiatrist's report showed that Todorvic exhibited a borderline personality organization disorder, and that she exhibited a character flaw that the judge in the case would later call frightening. The judge would say as a part of the case that the fact that teenage angst can now lead to murder and planning, like in this case, is truly terrifying, and frankly, I could not agree any more. The prosecution presented 30,000 pages of instant messaging and text messaging transcripts as evidence to show that she had driven Bagshaw to murder and that she had manipulated Bagshaw to follow through with it. Todorvic told him at various times that she wouldn't have sex with him, she would cheat on him, she would block him, and she would break up with him if he did not kill Stefanie. It was presented in court that the two had been talking about and fantasizing about ways to kill Stefanie and ways that they would dispose of her body and run from the law after they did it. At one point, Bagshaw had placated Todorvic by telling her to wait until the end of the school year so that he would have a vehicle and they would have a getaway car. They had talked about both of them killing Stefanie together, and each of them killing her on their own. These truly were two very sick puppies, and the case really circled around when the discussions went from fantasy to reality, and how much of a part Todorvic played in the eventual murder. There was very little doubt that the murder was very premeditated. It was presented in court that Bagshaw was seen by neighbors even lurking in the area of the Rengel home the night before on New Year's Eve. They had not known at the time who the man was when he was seen standing for hours in a neighbor's lawn. But after Bagshaw's photo was circulated in the media, they realized that the man that had killed Stefanie and the man that was lingering were in fact the same person. While he was standing in the neighbor's yard, he and Todorvic had been texting back and forth 65 times, and even attempted to call Stefanie's phone that night on New Year's Eve on multiple occasions, likely in an attempt then to lure her outside. In the end, the jury would deliberate for 20 hours over 3 days before they ultimately found Todorvic guilty of first-degree murder. Before her sentencing hearing, she was interviewed by 2 psychiatrists who compared her to Alex Forrest, which, if you're familiar with the movie Fatal Attraction, was the character that was played by Glenn Close. A psychiatrist presented at her sentencing hearing that any men in the future who got involved with Todorvic would be in danger because of her ability to manipulate and dominate others through their emotions. On the final day of her sentencing hearing, Todorvic would finally speak. She read a prepared statement, mind you, that said in part, "Every day, I wish that I could go back in time and change everything I said and have Stefanie be alive with her family again. I want you to know I take full responsibility for my part. I call bullshit." Justice Ian Nordheimer was not swayed by that prepared statement of utter crap, and he said that he didn't believe that she had accepted responsibility at all for her part in the murder. He also ruled that she would be sentenced as an adult, saying that her problems had not been properly diagnosed nor dealt with, and she is a potential threat to society and needs to be monitored for life. A youth sentence would have been a maximum of 6 years in custody, followed by 4 years in the community, and then no supervision and no criminal record. An adult sentence ensured that she would have a criminal record to follow her for the rest of her life. She was sentenced to life with no chance of parole for at least 7 years. Nordheimer said that the puppet master is not less worthy of blame than the puppet. David Bagshaw, for his part, pled guilty to first-degree murder, and he cried during the duration of the proceedings. He apologized in court and said that he would never forgive himself for the disgusting crime that he had committed, and never forgive himself for taking the life of an innocent girl who deserved to live. His lawyer told the courts that Bagshaw was more concerned with the pain and suffering that he had caused than he was concerned about what happened to him and what his sentence would be. Bagshaw was ultimately sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for a minimum of 10 years. That was the maximum that the 17-year-old could face.
In 2018, Todorvic was granted 6 months of day parole, but was brought back early when she was found to be in a love triangle with 2 ex-cons, a clear violation of her conditions. As her crime was relationship-driven, it was part of her conditions on parole to disclose any new relationships, which she did not. Surprise, surprise. Her parole was revoked at the time as she exhibited exactly what the psychiatrist said that she would at her trial earlier, when she was described as calculated and deceptive. Her own parole officer told the board during the hearing at the Grand Valley Institution for Women that Todorvic was manipulating the 2 men against each other, which shouldn't come as a surprise. In typical criminal proceeding fashion, Todorvic was granted parole again, though, in April of 2024, but only for 4 15-day unescorted absences to a halfway house. Essentially, this means that she is allowed 4 separate absences, each lasting up to 15 days, without being accompanied by staff or being supervised. Todorvic argued that the longer absence would be better for her to acclimate to returning to the real world, and that the previous 72-hour unescorted absences she completed in the past were too short, and when she was granted day parole, she was not prepared enough to handle the real world, and that is why it was revoked a short time later. Similar to her previous parole conditions, she is again to disclose any relationship or friendship to her supervising team. But let's face it, I don't have any faith that she'll do that.
I have to say, do you think that she just found that the shorter time period just didn't give her enough time to manipulate other people? She needed more time to work with?
I don't think so. I think that she was trying to manipulate the board into letting her be out longer anyways, because clearly she was out long enough to be able to manipulate 2 other inmates. She had enough time to manipulate people before she got caught.
This is wild to me. In court, they said this woman, this young girl back then, is going to manipulate any men she's involved with in the future. And here she goes. She's still in jail. She's still serving time, and she's got 2 ex-convicts fawning over her. And she plays them off one another. Show me how you think you've changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my whole thing about it all is that she's clearly displayed everything over and over and over again. Psychologists have put it out there, and yet, again, our system is just hey, catch and release. It's I understand, again, she was young, but, calculated, pretty manipulated at a pretty young age. Regardless of that, your brain is pretty developed in order for you to make those kind of decisions and manipulate in that kind of way. More of a threat.
How many of our serial killer cases that we've done do we cover this, where they get released because someone says, yeah, it's time to release you, let's acclimate you to society, and it gets worse? I don't see any rehabilitation here, and I'm the rehabilitation guy. I'm the guy that fights for people like Todorvic. I'm the guy that says she was young, she was stupid, she was led by her insecurities. Nope, not here. I'm sorry. You're now a woman. You're now still manipulating people. You're still proving that you are not suitable to be out in public. What the hell is going to happen? Not even if, but when she's fully released. That's what's scary to me, because like you said, catch and release is a thing in this country, and there is nothing here to tell me that she won't either manipulate someone to kill again, or she won't kill.
I mean, at least Bagshaw knew what he did was wrong and felt remorse and even apologized. I don't think she even apologized once for it. All she did was make an excuse. You guys didn't give me enough time and freedom, which is why I acted out.
There's no reasons for anything. She just does whatever she thinks and has no respect for authority, no respect for other people. She thinks that she can manipulate the legal system. And honestly, she probably can and probably will one day, or else they'll just decide that they need to let her go anyways. It's wild. So, speaking of Bagshaw, to wrap things up, in 2021, David Bagshaw applied for parole as well, and he was denied parole because he remains a high-needs offender and he still presents an undue risk to society. Bagshaw was told that he has made some gains, but that he still needs to make much more progress. He was denied full parole and day parole. You see, while he was imprisoned, Bagshaw was a part of a violent offense, and he also was involved in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. He also falsely claimed to be the father of his fiance's children on legal documents, and so that all proved that he still doesn't understand or adhere to rules of any kind, frankly. It was deemed that he still had serious issues with his emotional regulations, specifically anger issues, and that he still does not respect, as I just said, rules or authority. And so, that brings us to the end of another case. Bailey, I'll let you go first. Is there anything that you want to touch on that we didn't talk about in this episode, or you want to touch on at length?
I mean, when I was reading this case, and like I said, it's been pretty close to home kind of thing, I read that, Bagshaw was also not really a completely innocent party either. He was very abusive. It was said that he put hands on Todorvic. I also read somewhere, and I'm not entirely sure of the full accuracy because, again, Youth Criminal Justice Act, but I read somewhere that around the age of 14, he was actually arrested because he attacked his mother.
Yes, I read those things as well.
So he's already shown a violent tendency. He's also been able to show that he can't control his emotions. He's shown that he's easily manipulated into at least fantasizing, because he contributed ideas such as waiting at least until he got a car so that they could have a getaway, continued to allow Todorvic to have and vocalize these kinds of thoughts and feelings. It just doesn't sit right with me.
Have you seen the picture of this guy?
I have.
What about this guy attracts these women to him?
He's older.
What's that? Okay, that works with the girls. As a young man, he was fugly. As a grown man, he is just not a good-looking guy. And now what? It sounds to me, if you have, I don't know, first of all, he's engaged. Second of all, he had some kind of inappropriate relationship with, I'm assuming, with someone, a prison guard. I don't understand what the appeal of this guy is. Like, is it just that he'll do whatever someone tells him to do?
He might be easily manipulated. Who knows? Maybe he is very funny. Maybe he's very sweet. Maybe he's very attentive. We don't really know much about him other than the very few things that have been put out in the past, which are all exceptionally negative. And I mean, I don't see him being a very positive person, considering he was also already known as a serial cheater. He put hands on Todorvic. He attacked his mother. He antagonized the plan more and more and just kept pushing until it finally became a reality. And I'm sorry, but to stab someone with so much force that their stomach contents are pouring out of their body, that has some sort of deep-seated fueled rage.
Yep. Like, I guess this is a bad boy through and through. I guess that's what it is. I mean, what else do you say? Like, he was a football player. I guess that explains some of it. Everybody wants the bad boy football player. At least that's what Hollywood's taught me. But yeah, it's just, I wanted to ask you, in a situation like this one, obviously both people are to blame. You've got, as the judge put it, you've got the puppet and you've got the puppeteer. Is there one of the two that you personally find more culpable? Or is this just, you both suck as human beings, but like, do you blame the abuser who manipulates? Do you blame the abused, I guess in this case, which would be Bagshaw, who's manipulatable, and like, I don't know, is there one of the two parties that you personally would blame more in this situation?
I was actually going to just point out how completely and utterly confused I am about the inadequacy of, between the two sentences. Like, I understand that he was older and he followed through and did the action, but as everyone put it, the puppet can't move without the puppeteer. She even admitted that he wouldn't do these kind of things. He never mentioned wanting to do these kind of things. It was all her idea. It was driven by what she was going to take from him and what she was going to give him. And yet she still received a lesser sentence. Why? Because she was younger? She was the mastermind behind the entire plan. And this is another like Paul Bernardo, Carla Homolka thing, where it's like, I genuinely don't understand where it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt that both of these people played a hand in hand in murdering somebody, that they're treated so indifferent. Like, they should match. Their sentences should match. If he's getting the death penalty, she should get the death penalty, regardless of if she's 14, 15, he's 17. That makes no sense to me. You've proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Thank you, Melissa Todorvic, for actually just vocalizing it on a recording so we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you planned it, you orchestrated it, you are the reason it happened, and you're happy. You turned around and said that you felt responsible for it. And you were happy. Never once did you apologize. Whereas Bagshaw, he fully came out and said, like, yeah, I might be slightly psychotic, but I'm sorry. Like, it's something that I shouldn't have done. He's shown remorse. Either way, they are both shown beyond a reasonable doubt. He took her life physically. She took her life in every other way. She was the cause of it. He was just an attributing factor. They should be treated the same.
Well said. I agree with you. I was just looking and thinking, so it's been 18 years, give or take, 18 years since the murder. And it's interesting. Sure, you can say, well, at least they're both in custody, but it's like you said, there's still differences here. One has got day and week and whatever parole, and the other one can't even get day parole. So I agree with you, and I certainly don't think that the difference here is that Todorovic has changed or that she's become a better person. So I agree with you. I think it's just because she was younger. And again, I'm the one that's usually all for that. And in this case, no. Like, this person, these people are equally guilty. And one has shown remorse, in my opinion, from everything that I could research on some level, and the other one has not. So I'm right there with you.
And yet the one that shows remorse is the one that isn't given any leniency. The one that has openly, wholeheartedly admitted to the actions isn't given the leniency, but the one who sat there and was like, but she bullied me, so that's why I did it. She's shown leniency? What's to say someone doesn't cut her off in traffic and she decides to go nuts with a freaking tire iron? Well, she cut me off. I had to do it.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. I think the thing that stood out to me, just because, so one of the cases that I just did by myself recently covered the biggest mass killing in Canadian history. And one person in that case agreed to help murder the man's wife for debt forgiveness of $600, and the other person agreed to help kill that man's wife for a discount on a ring that he wanted to buy for his girlfriend. And here we have a boy, who agrees to kill someone so he can get laid. It blows my mind. I don't understand the mentality of people just willing to commit murder for whatever. I mean, thankfully, I don't know how much it would cost to hire a hitman. I hope nobody listening to the sound of my voice knows the cost of hiring a hitman, but I'm pretty sure it costs more than $600 or sex to hire someone to do that. And here it's kids, literally kids, getting other kids to kill other kids for what? What is going on in the world around us?
But also, what's to stop her from being insecure about another girl?
Yep. Nothing. Because she's still, in my opinion, from everything I've seen and read, she's still the same person. So I would imagine that on some level she is still guided in her life by those same insecurities. Why else was she playing two men against each other? She wanted the attention. She was getting the attention, so she played both sides against the middle so that they would fight over her. This is a girl who wants to be the center of someone and maybe everyone's world, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get that.
Typically, I would say love your children, because we see that killers are neglected. But from everything that I've seen, other than Bagshaw just having rage issues, their upbringings were pretty nice and they lived in stable homes. So loving your children doesn't really, I guess, count in this case. You could see her mother loved her as she sat there listening to everything. Her mother emotionally was supporting her in that room while she admitted to everything. So I guess love your kids doesn't always work.
You buried the lead on me on my close, so now I'm going to close and I'm going to repeat everything you said and agree with you. Without any further ado, this has been another crazy-ass episode of GBNF. Another terrifying case that shows that what we're capable of as human beings, and even from a very young age. Like Bailey just said, and we say it seems like every time we get together for one of these episodes, love your kids, but love the kids around you. And most, if not all, of these kids were loved, and yet they still took on a mind of their own. So like Bailey said, it certainly is not always the fault of the parents. We can all only do the best that we all can. So love your family and love everyone around you, and continue and keep trying every day to be better and be a part of the solution to this crazy world that we all live in. So For Bailey, for me, I'll say see you next week. Please come check us out over at patreon.com/GBNF True Crime for even more episodes. And we will both see you again next week for another episode.